Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to the NoDQ.com recap of AEW's Full Gear 2020 pay-per-view from Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida. We had about 1,000 fans in attendance for this show. Let's go ahead and get right to it. It is late here, almost midnight Eastern time. Very late for me doing these recaps, but we got to do it. Let's get through it. We had our buy-in show, which was basically video packages, but we did have one match. It was for the NWA Women's Championship. The new champion, Serena Deeb, versus Allison Kaye, who previously competed in the NWA, and she also wrestled in Impact Wrestling. Solid kickoff match, buy-in match, whatever you want to call it. I hope we see more of Allison Kaye in AEW. It would definitely help the women's division. And right now, I'm caring more about the NWA women's title than the AEW women's title. Solid match here between the ladies, back and forth. But eventually, Deeb picked up the win via submission with the Serenity Lock. And then after the match was over, we had Thunder Rosa, the former champion, come to the ring and have a face-off with Deeb. Looks like we'll be getting a rematch between them, probably in AEW. Psycho Jet Black with a $2 super chat. Thank you, Psycho. First one of the evening. Says, congratulations to President-elect Joe Biden. Poor TJS. Thank you for the super chat. I will not be talking about politics, but thank you nonetheless. And for those of you that would like to leave a super chat, it is appreciated, but please try to stick to the topic. So for instance, if you want to leave a super chat about the main event, save the super chat for the main event. Let's go ahead and get to the main card. We started off in a big way. We had Kenny Omega versus Adam Page in this tournament final, with the winner going on to the number one contenders match against whoever the champion would be at the end of this show. Don Callis, as in Don Callis of Impact Wrestling, was on commentary for this match. Of course, he's from Winnipeg, just like Kenny Omega, and he was even listed as the Impact Wrestling EVP. Omega offered a handshake, but Page declined the handshake, and we got going here. It was back and forth. This match was really back and forth. It wasn't like the standard heel versus face match where the heel works over the face for a long time. It went back and forth. They brawled on the outside of the ring, and Omega ended up hitting a moonsault using the barricade onto Page. They got back in the ring. They were on the ramp fighting, and Page powerbombed Omega onto the ramp, rolled Omega back into the ring, hit another powerbomb, got a near fall. Omega came back, hit a Tiger Driver 98, and he slightly delayed in making a cover because earlier in the match he had tweaked his knee. Page was able to kick out of that, and then Page made a comeback, hit the Deadeye, got a near fall on that, and then eventually Omega hit the one-winged angel, and he struggled a bit. He almost did not get it because of the injured knee, but he did hit the move, picked up the win. Really strong opening match. It set the tone for the evening. Omega is now your number one contender for the AEW World title. I mean, not many better ways out there to start your pay-per-view as far as I'm concerned. It was an awesome match. Great stuff from these guys. And next up, we had Orange Cassidy versus John Silver, which I was pretty much writing off. It would just be a comedy match. But these guys actually had a really solid match. It started off with the comedy, of course. Orange Cassidy putting his hands in his pockets. Silver getting very upset about this. But then he stuck it to Orange Cassidy. He got control of the match, and then he intentionally ripped out the pockets from Orange Cassidy's pants. That's a new way to get heel heat, and it got boos. I just wish we had like a sold-out arena. Imagine the heat that would get, ripping out the pockets of Orange Cassidy's pants. That was a funny spot. I really liked that. And yeah, they just actually had a really strong match from this point forward. It was back and forth a bit, and then Cassidy picked up the win with an orange punch, followed by the beach break slam. Orange Cassidy wins. No big surprise there, but hey, good showing for John Silver, and he seems to be gaining a following with every week that passes by. All you need to do now is get him out of the Dark Order, and maybe he can do something more significant. TJS with a $3 super chat. No response to Psycho from earlier, but he does say, AEW needs a middle ground, shorter and cheaper shows. Well, you could tweet Tony Khan that and see what he thinks. A lot of people seem to like the format of 4 pay-per-views a year, $50. I would agree that I'd be down for a shorter show that was maybe $10 cheaper. I would not mind that, but it seems to be working for them right now. However, if you do think TJS's idea would work better, I would definitely recommend messaging Tony Khan, adding him on Twitter, because he does read tweets, and I think if enough people wanted that, he would consider it. After the match was over, Best Friends celebrated with Cassidy after the match. They did their big hug, give the people what they want, as Excalibur likes to say. And next up, we had the TNT title match. Cody Rhodes versus Darby Allin. Darby Allin had a big entrance. He arrived with that Face of TNT card that he had on Wednesday's Dynamite. And then he took his skateboard and smashed the windshield. Cody had his big entrance with his entourage, the Nightmare family. And he was announced. Even though he said a few days ago that he was not going to use the Rhodes name for wrestling, first night he legally can do it. I think he could legally do it back on Wednesday, but on this show, he was announced by Justin Roberts as Cody Rhodes. First time with his full name in a match for AEW. Mike Chioda, former WWE referee, did the honors for this one. Cody got the upper hand early and started showboating. He was posing. Later on, he would start doing push-ups, Scott Steiner-like push-ups. I guess the idea with Cody is that it just depends on what the situation is, if he's going to be a babyface or if he's going to be a heel. In this match, I guess because Darby Allin is the underdog character, Cody was playing the heel. He's like a tweener. That's what Cody is. He just will change his role depending on what the match is. He was definitely a heel in this match. Showboating, and Arn Anderson even had to yell at Cody at one point to stay focused on Allin. Cody worked over Allin's arm for a while. And then Cody made a mistake. He went for a moonsault. He missed. And then Allin made a comeback. Cody got control again. He had Allin on the top. He did this avalanche crossroads off the top. However, Allin had rolled so far that he rolled right by the rope and managed to get his foot on the rope. Cody was then considering using his weightlifting belt, which of course is a heelish thing to do, but he did not end up using it. Allin hit the coffin drop, and this time he actually made the cover without being pinned himself. Cody kicked out of it. And then they both started exchanging roll-ups back and forth, and eventually Darby got the best of it. He rolled up Cody, kept him down for the 3 count, and became the brand new TNT champion. This was a hell of a match. I thought it was a damn good match. Cody is so good. The guy knows how to put a match together, and he knows the right times to do moves. It's not like he just does moves randomly. Each move he does serves a purpose, and he can do the flashy moves, but he chooses the right timing when it comes to when he does his big moves. And Cody is just a great professional wrestler. He has consistently delivered in these big match situations. And this was absolutely the right finish. Like I said when we did predictions, if you were going to pull the trigger on Darby Allin, I felt like this was the night to do it. Darby Allin wins the title. Gary sent in a $2 super chat. Thank you, Gary. He says, this pay-per-view was explosive. AEW is for real Rift. Definitely so. I agree with that, Gary. And the Jeff Meacham Network, Jeff sending in $5. Thank you, Jeff. Says, formally requesting to be on the No DQ review this week, especially if Robbie and or Virtue are on. Hashtag in defense of AEW. Ooh, interesting. For those of you that follow Robbie and Virtue on Twitter, they were pretty critical of this show. I thought this was a great show without giving my letter grade yet. I thought this was an awesome show, worth the money, but not everybody agrees. Robbie was critical, Virtue was critical. I think we're going to need to get Jeff on, hopefully with Robbie, because it could get very interesting. And I think you guys would really enjoy the discussion. I say let's do it. Wayne Gangwer with a $20 super chat. No comment, but thank you very much for that, Wayne. I do appreciate it. Thank you so much. And people in the chat room questioning Robbie, but Robbie is very opinionated. He has his opinions. Follow him at NoDQVice if you want to pick his brain about this pay-per-view. You're not going to get a negative review from me on this show. I thought it was great. So anyways, after the match was over, Cody got down on a knee and he presented the TNT title to Allin. I thought this was very cool. And then Taz showed up as he was threatening that he would. Taz showed up and crashed the party. And as he was there on the stage talking trash, we had Brian Cage and Ricky Starks jump Cody and Darby from behind, beat the crap out of them, and they fought on the outside, and Allin ended up getting thrown through the AEW Full Gear set piece. And they took Allin by his car, and they were going to try to slam the door into his arm and break his arm. But fortunately for him, Will Hobbs made the save. So a little cameo appearance by Will Hobbs. Power Packers 90 with the $2 super chat says, Rob is the Skip Bayless of the AEW reviewer. Well, thank you for that. I do appreciate it. And Calvin Bowman got put into timeout. What did you do, Calvin? Why are you causing trouble in the chat room? Let's move on here. We had Hikaru Shida versus Nyla Rose for the AEW Women's title. Match was good. I thought it was a solid match, but I had trouble getting into it for what I said earlier. I just don't really care about the AEW Women's division. I feel bad for Shida because she's been champion now. I believe she's the longest reigning champion now, but she needs some different opponents. We already see her against Nyla Rose in previous AEW events. We've seen her against a number of people, but it just feels like the women's roster is not very loaded. You do have some potential, though, with Thunder Rosa and Allison Kaye and Serena Deeb, basically bringing in the NWA women, I should say. So anyways, Shida brought the fight to Rose right off the bat. They fought on the outside of the ring, and Vicky Guerrero ended up getting involved pretty early on. She attacked Shida when the referee wasn't looking, and then Rose attempted to pull a table from under the ring. She was stopped by the referee. Vicky was pissed off. She yelled bullshit at the referee. That was pretty funny. Shida's knee got hurt. Rose put an iron claw on the knee, which I thought was pretty cool. Unique offense. Shida made a comeback and hit a diving drop kick to Rose onto the staging area and then got her back in the ring. Shida hit a missile drop kick off the top, got a near fall. Shida attempted to hit her running knee strike finisher, but she was having trouble doing it, and Rose hit a power bomb. Rose maybe could have won the match, but she got overconfident, arrogant. She lifted up Shida at the count of 2, and Shida made another comeback. She hit an avalanche Falcon Arrow and did the same thing to Rose. At the count of 2, she lifted Rose up. Shida then ran the ropes. Vicky Guerrero grabbed her leg. Shida got distracted, stupid baby face. Rose took advantage. And then Vicky attempted to use the kendo stick. Why? I mean, she would get disqualified. Referee grabbed the kendo stick because the referee is like, I do not want the fans getting pissed off at a DQ finish. I'm not sure that's what the intention was, but you know how it goes. Fans just don't like the DQ finishes, and the referees are looking out for us. Shida then knocked Rose into Vicky, got Rose back into the ring, hit a Falcon Arrow, but Rose once again kicked out, and then Shida finally got her knee strikes in. She hit several of them, pinned Rose to retain the championship, and then afterwards Vicky yelled at Rose a bit, slapped her, and walked off. So I guess, is that the end of Vicky Guerrero and Nyla Rose already? I don't know, as Lex Luger would say. Johnny Boy with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Johnny. Says, anyone can win an election when even dead people can vote. By the way, show was okay. Keep on rocking, Rift. Well, thank you for that super chat again, Johnny Boy. I do appreciate it. Virtue has arrived in the chat room. Virtue, I'm not sure if you missed it, but Jeff Meacham wants to be on the review. He wants to debate you and Robbie Vice on this pay-per-view. Let's make it happen. Next up, we had the AEW Tag Team titles on the line. We had FTR versus the Young Bucks. Tully Blanchard came out with FTR, but the stipulation was that he was banned from ringside, so he went to the back. And Matt Jackson, even though he was hurt, he started the match, and they held their own against FTR in the early minutes of the match. It was a bit slower pace. You know, they were slowly building up to the big moments. Pretty standard tag team match in the beginning, you know, just taking it slow. I had Caitlin come in, my fiance. She wasn't watching earlier. She was watching Joe Biden's speech, but I was able to get her to come into the room to attempt to watch this, but unfortunately she gave up after about 10 minutes, and I don't know what that says. I mean, she was more invested in the election, I think, but I'm not sure if AEW is connecting with a casual audience, or maybe Caitlin just isn't into wrestling anymore. I don't know what it is. I'd have to talk to her more about it. But she says it's the politics. She was interested more in the stuff with Biden. Dylan sent in a $5 super chat. Says, unfortunately, half of the women's roster are foreigners and cannot travel because of COVID. Yeah, that's definitely a problem too. And also, WWE, for all the complaints people have, WWE has a very loaded roster. I mean, they have some of the top talent, most of the top talent, quite frankly. But hopefully over time, AEW can build up their women's division and get these NWA stars in the mix and start building them up, and get Britt Baker in the mix for the world title too, as far as I'm concerned. Unfortunately, right when Caitlin left was when this match really started to pick up, and they started doing all the big moves. The Bucks, even though Matt was hurt, they were able to get back into it. FTR actually had a moment where Harwood got his hand messed up, and the referee had to tape up his hand, and during the match, Matt would try to go after the hand, and then they would try to go after Matt's knee. And there was a point where Matt was on the ground, and Wheeler came off the top with a splash. Matt got his knees up, but of course his knee was hurt, so he just aggravated the injury. Matt finally got to tag in Nick, and the Bucks started doing their thing, what they tend to do. They cleaned house, and they paid tribute to past tag teams. They hit a 3D in honor of the Dudley Boys. They did the Twist of Fate, and then the Swanton Bomb. But that did not get the job done. And then FTR did a tribute to DIY, and they got a near fall on Matt. The Bucks then put on stereo sharpshooters. Matt had one in the ring, and Nick had one on the outside. However, Matt, his knee gave out on him, and he had to break the hold. Bucks then hit a BTE trigger. Wheeler made the save as Harwood was about to be pinned. And then Matt was just getting frustrated. He grabbed the steel chair, and he was going to use the chair. And Harwood even dared Matt to do it because, of course, a DQ would mean no title change, and the Bucks would never get another opportunity. However, Matt did put the chair down. FTR managed to take advantage of this, and they hit a spike pile driver to Matt, but Matt managed to get his foot on the rope. And then Wheeler flipped off Matt and kicked him. Matt was down, appeared to be out. Wheeler went somewhere outside of FTR's playbook. Their motto is no flips, just fists. But Wheeler decided to try and beat the Bucks with flips. He did a 450 splash, but he missed. Matt hit a super kick and pinned Wheeler, making the Young Bucks the new AEW Tag Team Champions in their very first reign as champions. Gary with a $2 super chat says, predictable, but I did not want this match to end. It was a really strong match. I do not think it was as good as the Revolution match. And the Revolution match, to be fair, had a crowd. And that's one thing about the pandemic shows. You know, it's not fair to compare them to previous events that had fans. If this match had fans, would have been very close. But I would say the Revolution tag match was better. Not quite match of the year material, but it was a really strong match. And glad to see the Bucks finally get the titles. After the match, Kenny Omega came out and celebrated with them, and you had Adam Page there standing by himself at the tunnel, so that was a nice visual. And Socially Outcasted said, Aaron, did you notice the outfits? Oh yeah, the outfits were really cool. FTR, what was it, the greatest tag team of all time initials on their jackets. I thought those were pretty cool. I definitely liked the gear for Full Gear. Power Packers 90 with a $5 super chat. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Says, this was another awesome tag team match. Also, me and Robbie been talking about doing a debate already. I would like to see that. He says, I'm all in on being part of a debate episode. We got to make it happen. I would like to see that very much. Because we had a very entertaining debate with Virtue and Mr. Tito. Imagine a debate about AEW, because AEW is not everybody's cup of tea. I've definitely seen some criticism of AEW, but a lot of people love it too. Dylan Hensley with a $5 super chat. Thank you, Dylan. Says, my brother is also a very casual fan. He loved the Bucks and FTR match, but he thought the Hardy-Guevara match was dumb. He enjoyed the show overall. Well, this is the thing about AEW. Cody said this in a recent interview. AEW is several different flavors of ice cream. So not every match is going to be your cup of tea. It's got a variety of different styles, and this show definitely had it. But for me, this is one of the things I like about AEW. I like the fact that every match is different. You have hardcore matches. You have matches with high flying. You have cinematic matches. You have comedy matches. You have something different. Like, if it's the same match every match, it gets boring to me. I like that there's variety, and I think that's actually one of the strong points of AEW. I don't want every match to be chocolate. As much as I love chocolate, I like the variety. So if you want a match where everything's chocolate or vanilla, I guess you can watch WWE, although sometimes WWE does pull off good pay-per-views with a variety of matches. But yeah, I like the fact that AEW has different styles, and each match on the card is a little bit different from the other ones. It's like a band, Some bands, every song sounds the same, and for some people they like that, but other people like bands that do different styles and don't stick to a very specific genre. They spread their wings and they go in different places. Virtue says he just doesn't like AEW fans. Well, there you go. So moving on here, we had the Elite Deletion, which, as I just said, a different flavor of ice cream from the tag team match. And I thought it was very entertaining. Was it the best cinematic match? No, but I like what they did, and it was a little bit different. And I applaud that, because if they just do the same thing over and over again, it gets boring. So in this match, Matt was on the phone, and he was talking to somebody, said he was going to need their help. Guevara arrived in a golf cart. It had Spanish God on it. Guevara was greeted by the Neo 1 drone, and we had Matt's image shoot out of the drone. But then Matt appeared in a monster truck. He ran down the cart, destroyed it. However, luckily for Guevara, he managed to escape, and Matt even called it a squash job. He got attacked by Guevara. The match officially began, and at this point, it wasn't like a total cinematic match. It basically turned into a regular match at the Hardy compound. We even had the announcers calling the match and no dramatic music, at least at this point. And Javante with a $2 super chat says, Full Gear 2019 or Full Gear 2020? Well, without giving away my letter grade, I'd probably go with last year, because we had a crowd. The crowd is such a big difference maker, and the fans did help on this show. You had a limited number of fans, which did help. Not the same thing as 10,000 people, but it did help. So the two guys, Matt and Sammy, they brawled in the forest, and then they fought around Matt's backyard. There was an AEW ring set up in the forest, in the backyard. And then Matt put Guevara through a table, only for Santana and Ortiz of the Inner Circle to show up. Private Party, they were the ones on the phone with Matt. They made the save to help out Matt, so the odds were even. But then all of a sudden, Matt grabbed some Roman candles, started shooting them towards everybody. Guevara got a couple of the Roman candles, and they were shooting at each other like it was some kind of a war, like a real-life war, shooting cannons at each other, but instead they're shooting Roman candles. And then all of a sudden we had Gangrel show up. Yes, the Gangrel. I popped for this. I liked the Gangrel cameo, and he had an unconscious Hurricane Helms with him. Helms was able to come to, and Helms got thrown into the lake. I don't think it was the Lake of Reincarnation. Maybe it was, but I don't believe Helms reincarnated after that. He was actually the reporter. He did transition into the reporter and then got thrown into the lake by Guevara. Matt and Guevara ended up fighting into the Dome of Deletion, as they called it, and Matt summoned the drone to close the door, and they were locked inside, just the two of them. There was another ring set up. There were tables, ladders, and chairs. Guevara started taking the ring apart and choked Matt with the rope. Guevara then climbed up to the top of the ladder. He jumped off the ladder, put Matt through the table with a swanton bomb just to stick it to Matt. However, Matt did kick out. This was like a Falls Count Anywhere match. Matt kicked out of it. Then we started having the dramatic cinematic music playing, and Matt speared Guevara off the apron through these two tables that were set up. Guevara was bleeding, and Matt took the chair. Poetic justice here, because if you recall, Guevara threw the chair into Matt's face and busted him open for real. Matt took the chair, jammed it into Guevara's face, and then finished him off with the concerto, pinned him 1, 2, 3 to win the cinematic match. And afterwards, you had Private Party, Shane Helms. They all celebrated the victory. And Rebby was there. Rebby made a cameo. She was playing the piano as they showed highlights of the match. And Sammy Guevara was placed into a trash can. They loaded the trash can on a truck, a pickup truck, and Senor Benjamin drove away. Like I said, I enjoyed this. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I was entertained. No DQ Virtue says, I still have my $50. Well, good for you, Virtue. TJS with a $3 super chat says, at first I thought Gangrel was Y2J with fangs. Ouch. That's pretty brutal. You should tweet that to Jericho and see if he blocks you or not. Maybe he'll be complimented by it. Let's move on here. We had, speaking of Chris Jericho, we had Chris Jericho versus MJF, and Virtue says the cinematic match was the best thing on the show. Jericho versus MJF, stipulation if MJF won, he would be part of the Inner Circle. MJF flipped off the fans during his entrance. Jericho is like the babyface in this match. He came out, got a big pop, fans sang his song. MJF went for a handshake. Jericho just slapped him. They brawled on the outside, and Jericho went for a Judas effect, but he hit the ring post. MJF worked over Jericho for a while. Jericho made a comeback, hit a lion salt, hit a Frankensteiner with MJF on the top, got a near fall. Jericho put the walls of Jericho on. MJF managed to get to the rope. And people are talking about middle fingers. Roy said, so many middle fingers on this show, Jesus. Yeah, that's an AEW thing. They love the middle fingers. And Virtue says, I'm tired of false finish spot fest matches. We definitely got to get a debate with everybody just to talk about AEW. I think that'll be a fun one. MJF took a page out of Jericho's book. He hit a code breaker and then hit his heat seeker DDT or whatever it is. Jericho kicked out of that. Jericho then made another comeback, hit his code breaker for a near fall. Wardlow then ran down and gave MJF the Dynamite Diamond. MJF swung at Jericho, missed. Then we had Jake Hager, who was not at the Hardy compound. He gave Jericho Lucille the bat, and Jericho was going to use the bat, but MJF did the Eddie Guerrero trick. He fell to the ground. Referee turned around and thought Jericho used the bat. Jericho was like, no, I didn't use the bat. And while this was going on, MJF rolled up Jericho, used the tights, and scored the 1-2-3 victory. And not just him, but MJF and Wardlow are now officially members of the Inner Circle. I gotta say, Jericho's a veteran, and he turned his back to MJF, knowing MJF did the Eddie Guerrero trick. I guess that's the only thing I did not like about the finish, because I don't buy that Jericho would fall for it, considering he's the 50-year-old veteran and he's seen every trick in the book. So I had a little bit of trouble buying into that, but I did enjoy the match, and Socially Outcast agrees with me on that. Dumb veteran syndrome. And Stinky Toffee 12 says, this is the start to the Chris Jericho face turn. Very much could be. I mean, I would not be shocked. I would have preferred to have seen something else, but what they did was good. I liked it. I would have been fine if there was a double cross, but of course, the other members of Inner Circle were at the Hardy compound. But maybe at some point we'll get that, like the Nation of Domination, where The Rock kicked out Farouk and eventually MJF kicks out Jericho. I still think they should do that storyline. We had our main event match of the evening. Jon Moxley defending against Eddie Kingston. And before the match, I should note that we did get a brief Miro appearance. Also earlier in the show, Lance Archer did a promo with Jake Roberts. It seemed like most of the roster at least got some type of role on this show. Private Party, they were in the Elite Deletion match. And backstage, we had Orange Cassidy and the Best Friends confronted by Miro and Kip Sabian. Interesting to see Miro versus Orange Cassidy. I wonder how that'll go. Anyways, we had Moxie versus Eddie Kingston, and they went right at it. They started trading blows. They chopped each other, and they started mat wrestling, and Kingston got very dirty, was biting Moxley. They slapped each other back and forth. They went to the outside of the ring. Moxley tried to break Kingston's fingers, and this turned into a death match very quickly because we got thumbtacks involved. Both guys got busted open. Moxley was busted open on the head, and Kingston, his mouth was bleeding. He suplexed Moxley several times, and then he took some barbed wire. Moxley had brought in a barbed wire baseball bat and started using it, but then Kingston grabbed some of the barbed wire, wrapped it around his hand, and just started punching Moxley with the barbed wire. He then got some thumbtacks, slammed Moxley onto the thumbtacks, and then Kingston got some rubbing alcohol, poured the alcohol onto Moxley because, Moxley's got all these wounds and you pour alcohol on them and it's pretty painful. It was a Walmart branded, what is it, Equate? Equate branded rubbing alcohol. Although I think they tried to erase the logo, maybe for copyright reasons. I don't know. So the alcohol was poured on. For a moment, I thought somebody was going to get set on fire. I was like, is the alcohol there to help with a flame spot or a fire spot? I thought they were going to have somebody set on fire here for a minute. Anyways, Moxley did manage to make a comeback. He hit the paradigm shift, and then he took the barbed wire, wrapped it around his forearm, and choked Kingston out using the barbed wire. And the referee was just so upset. Kingston eventually gave up. It was just too much to handle. And Moxley was declared the winning competitor, retaining the championship. Really brutal match here. I would say it was not as violent as the Lights Out match from last year with Omega, but it was a pretty brutal match. And yes, Larry, it was probably water, but it's make-believe, so we pretend it's alcohol. It'd be funny if it was alcohol. Maybe it was. I guess that's a question to ask Moxley. I know they're doing their post-show press conference right now. Maybe somebody asked that question if it was real alcohol or not. After the match was over, Moxley helped up Kingston. Kingston did not want any help. He left the ring. Kenny Omega then came down. So I like how it went full circle. The pay-per-view started with Omega, ended with Omega confronting Moxley. They had their face-off, and now it's just a matter of when they're going to have their match. Will it be on a TV show, or will it be saved for Revolution, which is not until February 27th, 2021. And I'm still not sure if we'll have fans by that point. My feeling is probably not, as far as leaving Daly's place. I'd like to be wrong, though. I guess we'll see. Overall, main event was really strong. Show itself was great. Like, from start to finish, I was very entertained. I felt like I got my money's worth. I felt everybody worked really hard to put on a great show. And again, different flavors of ice cream. If you're a person that likes a lot of different flavors, this was the show for you. If you just like chocolate or vanilla, then this was not the show for you. If you like one style, AEW's not for you. But I really enjoyed it. I was very entertained by it. And I give the show a solid A. Another great pay-per-view from AEW. I would say there was no match that was match of the year. but there were a lot of very strong matches on this show. It reminded me a lot of like WrestleMania 31, where there was no one match that was like, this is an all-time classic, but there were enough really strong matches and entertaining segments that I felt I got my money's worth, bottom line. I very much enjoyed the show. Gary says solid A, 4.5 stars. Socially Outcasted says definitely an A. Roy with an A. Kev with an A-. Mohammed with a B+. Johnny Boy with a B. Nick Glavin with an A. Israel Diaz with a C. And Anthony with an A. Dr. NXT Scorpio with a B+. And Dylan sent in a $10 super chat. Says, I do not care what Virtue says. Guys like Eddie Kingston are why we need AEW. Eddie went almost 20 years without getting signed to a major promotion until AEW came to be. The fans and wrestlers need alternatives. Very true, Dylan, and it's great that AEW is around, and even during a pandemic, for somebody like Eddie Kingston to get an opportunity like this is pretty cool. I'm glad he got this opportunity, and he definitely shined in it, and we'll see what's next for him. I would recommend checking out the pay-per-view if you get the chance. And just, you know what to expect from AEW at this point. I definitely think it was better than All Out. On par with the Double or Nothing pay-per-view, although I think the Stadium Stampede is probably my favorite AEW match of the pandemic, just because it was a real spectacle. I mean, it was crazy. So I would say Stadium Stampede was the overall best match, but I think maybe from start to finish, this might have been even better than Double or Nothing. Maybe not as good as Revolution, though, because Revolution had fans. So again, I try not to compare this show to the pre-pandemic shows, but as far as pandemic shows go, I mean, it's a toss-up between this and Double or Nothing. They were both really strong shows. And Virtue says he is an Eddie Kingston supporter. All love on his Twitter. There you go. Follow NoDQ_Virtue and NoDQ Vice. They have different opinions. You can chat with them, but Virtue will probably call you a mark if he disagrees with you. Just a heads up. Thank you guys for tuning in. Results over on NoDQ.com. Got some videos and whatnot. You can check that out. And stay tuned for the very latest. Take care, everybody. Have a great night. Stay positive. Be safe. And I will see you guys next time.